Norfolk and Western Class A's, or sometimes called the A Class. Regardless of the order of that phrasing, CHUNGUS! They were 2664 simple articulated steam locomotives, built by Norfolk and Western's own Roanoke shops in Roanoke, Virginia. Unlike a lot of the other very large engines, these were not designed by a private locomotive manufacturer like Lima, Alco, or Baldwin. Norfolk and Western did these on their own, and they were among their largest locomotives, and lasted right up until the very end of steam on the railway. The history of the development of the A-Class can be traced back to the mid-1920s. During that time, Norfolk and Western had a large fleet of compound Mallet-type locomotives, which are also articulated and sometimes confused with simple articulates. Even I've made that mistake, actually. But Mallets are compound. They recycle steam. Simple articulates don't. Though the wheel arrangement of Mallets and simple articulates tends to be remarkably similar. The problem Norfolk and Western had was the Mallets were reliable enough for the heavy freights, but they were really not great at fast freights or merchandise trains. Those tended to operate at higher speeds, which the Mallets just weren't suited for. And in order to deal with this problem, they had ordered a second batch of 482 USRA heavy mountain locomotives, which were assigned to double head with 480M class locomotives, pulling these lighter but faster freights. This solution only sort of worked. Even together, those two locomotives really couldn't handle the weight. I mean, they could, but not at the desired speeds. These trains were supposed to go fast. They had to get where they were going. The speed is the essence, and you're not doing it, guys. I know you're doing your best, ladies, but we need you to try harder. So, frustrated, Norfolk and Western opted to build their own class of 10 482s, known as the K3s, at their Roanoke shops in 1926. They were designed specifically for dual service, but weren't really that great. They had some issues. They had trouble with their running gear, and they had counterbalancing problems. They also still did not have suitable power for dealing with timed freights over the mountains, getting eternally more annoyed. Norfolk and Western decided to convert one of their Z1 classes, a 2662, number 1399, to a 4-cylinder single expansion locomotive, taking one of the Mallets and making it a simple articulate, basically, is what they did, classifying her as a Z2. This conversion was considered unsuccessful. While it did result in a higher starting tractive effort, her boiler was simply too small to supply steam in a simple setup. She was designed to be a Mallet, so she needed the recycled steam in addition to what she was producing. Her boiler just couldn't do it. It was also too light to provide adequate adhesion for heavy trains, so yeah, basically, that experiment didn't work. By the mid-1930s, they were still trying desperately to figure out what to do about this because nothing they tried seemed to be working. They started drawing up plans to design a new heavy Mallet type of locomotive to eliminate the double-heading of passenger trains and pull-time freight trains over the blasted mountains. These Appalachians, mountain mamas, they're everywhere. They're in the way, and we have to get over them fast. The end result actually wound up being not a Mallet, but a simple articulate, the Class A's. Upon delivery in 1936, with the first two sisters being number 1200 and 1201, they were really good. Oh my god, did we finally get something right? Finally? Thank God. 1200 and 1201 were excellent, and they proceeded to build 8 more the following year. They were capable of pulling 4,800 tons at 25 miles per hour on a 0.5% grade and 7,500 tons at 64 miles per hour on level track. During World War II, they'd build 25 more to add to the family, and finally constructed an additional 8 between 1949 and 1950. They were some of the last mainline steam locomotives to be put into service, actually, and they were remarkably successful, with a total output of 5,600 horsepower and an attractive effort of 114,000 pounds of force. Yo! Okay. They had cast steel frames and Timken roller bearings. Nice. And the last 5 constructed actually had McGill multi-roll roller bearings on the side and main rods, making them the only articulated locomotives to ever use those. They were assigned mostly on freight service, pulling both slower, heavy freights as well as the fast-timed freights. They were rated at 13,000 tons of drag freight between Williamson, West Virginia and Portsmouth, Ohio, and could reach speeds of 42 miles per hour while doing that. Between Portsmouth and Columbus, Ohio, they were rated at 5,200 tons of fast freight and could reach 65, and they did occasionally pull passengers too, and on those runs they could hit 70. Interestingly, they also had a habit of carrying an additional tender. Why? Well, the reason has to do with the fast freights, actually. The secondary tender on a steam locomotive generally won't be carrying proper fuel, like coal, for example, because how are you going to get it? I suppose you could put one with oil back there, but not in this case. These were meant purely for extra water, and the reason was so they could skip a water stop, allowing them to keep going. And this worked really well. It increased their gross ton miles per train hour by 31%. And the thing about the Norfolk and Western is that they really tried to cling to their steam locomotives for a while. A lot of the railways in Appalachia tried to do this. And that was because of the coal industry. They moved a lot of coal. Like a lot of coal. Coal drags were very normal for them. And not only did that mean that they had ready access to the fuel for steam engines, but also they didn't want to undermine some of their principal customers by no longer, supporting their business. Because diesels didn't use coal. They used oil. So yeah, that was one of those things. They clung to them for a lot longer than most. But eventually were forced into getting diesels because the few railways there were that were still clinging to steam weren't enough to support the building of steam locomotives with the infrastructure, spare parts, and everything that goes into that. The entire industry had collapsed. Norfolk and Western did, of course, start experimenting with diesels to see how well they'd actually do compared to their A's, for example. In fact, in 1952, one of the A's, as well as a Y6B class, were pitted against a 4-unit EMD F7 diesel set. The tests indicated that the fuel costs and similar items were about the same. Seriously. They were the same. It was a tie. But the problem was the diesels eventually won out because they were cheaper to operate. They had lower maintenance needs. And as the industry as a whole started taking a downturn, with more potential customers using trucks instead of trains, Norfolk and Western didn't have a choice and started dieselizing. The retirement of the A's in particular started in 1958, and by 1959 they were all gone. 2 sisters should be noted, however. Only one has survived to the present day, but number 1240 was the one that pulled a farewell to steam excursion train, along with one of the Y6Bs, number 2174. 1240 pulled the excursion from Roanoke, Virginia to Bluefield, West Virginia, where 2174 took over. Despite being the one that pulled the farewell to steam tour, you think being, kind of iconic in that way? Yeah, they scrapped her. She was sold for scrap the same year. But fortunately, one of her sisters did survive. Number 1218. She is the only member of her family left. In fact, for reference, there's also only one Class Y left as well, but they're a different story. She was retired the same year, 1959, but instead of being scrapped, she was purchased by the Union Carbide Company located in Charleston, West Virginia, because they needed a stationary boiler at a chemical plant. That's where she sat, and did that job, until 1965, when 1218 was repurchased from Union Carbide by a New England millionaire named F. Nelson Blunt. We've talked about him before, because he's the one who created Steamtown. He's the one that bought a whole bunch of steam engines with all his money, and threw them in a field and had big dreams that never really happened, but he wound up preserving basically everything he bought. So, hey, and of course he wanted 1218. She was big and impressive, the last of her kind. But she didn't stay in the Steamtown collection for a super long time. 3 years after she was bought by Blount, Norfolk and Western stepped in again. They did a cosmetic restoration on her at their East End shops back in Roanoke, Virginia, where she was born. And then she was put on display at the Roanoke Transportation Museum in 1971. Now, 1218's story is pretty long, so we're not going to cover it today, but I'll give you the cliff notes because, her story didn't end at the Roanoke Transportation Museum. Well, actually, as of now, it has, currently, but not then. See, she was restored to operating condition for the Norfolk Southern steam program between 1987 and 1991, working alongside her bestie, Norfolk and Western 611. But the program was canceled in 1994. So she was sent back to the museum, which is now known as the Virginia Museum of Transportation. No longer Roanoke Transportation Museum, but the same place, doesn't matter. And that's where she is. Still, now. Chilling. Vibing. Hanging out. People really want her to move again, but there doesn't seem to be any plans to make that happen. She's actually missing a lot of pretty critical components as it stands, so getting her operable now would be, expensive. I mean, even if she wasn't missing parts, it would be expensive. She's huge. But hey, stranger things have happened. And she's at a museum. She's safe. She's undercover. She's not going anywhere. And she's also the only surviving 2664 steam locomotive in the world. Not just the only surviving A. The only one with that particular wheel arrangement, so she's special in 2 ways. Maybe we'll give her her own video sometime in the future, but for now, till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.